Today I'm going to show you the technique behind a forehand topspin. Let's begin by having our 3 fingers around the bottom of the racket, like that. Thumb here, just on the rubber. Index finger comfortable on the other side of the rubber as well. And now we're ready to start our shot. Alright, so some of the important things. A lot of players that are starting out and learning this shot for the first time, either they haven't yet started or they've played a number of years doing this and that, which is a big problem because you're cutting out a lot of the spin and the speed. And the worst part about it is that you're trying harder and harder and harder and it's getting worse and worse. So what you actually need to understand is that when you play a forehand topspin, the majority of the spin, the efficiency, the spin and power, it actually comes from, it comes from the rubber hitting the ball, like this. Imagine now, okay, so if I move my shoulder, my wrist slows down, right? So I need to get a lot of wrist speed because the bat's on my fingers, it's on my wrist. And it's a light one. It's not like a tennis racket or a badminton racket where it's bigger and heavier and my shoulder needs to come in. So table tennis with a smaller racket, it's almost all with your wrist and with your fingers. Once I start moving my elbow, my shoulder, you can see how my wrist slows down, right? My wrist slows down means my back slows down, which means I'm not going to get the speed that I want. If I can restrict this, if I can sort of keep that there, let's say, stabilize this and start going backwards and forwards with the wrist, then I'm gonna get the most out of my shot. So here's what it looks like with shoulder. See, I'm trying so hard, but the ball's not really going. I'm not quite getting the quality meaning spin and speed that I want. Now I'm gonna use my wrist. I'm gonna isolate this shoulder. I'm gonna go backwards with the wrist, and then follow through with the wrist. So a common formula that most coaches actually do tell their players is to go back with here, and then close this forearm. It's an easy formula to follow so that to make sure that the player actually goes. All right, so again, to summarize, you basically want to go back here. So cock the wrist back. When you strike the ball, follow through with the wrist. See here, can you see how my shoulders, my elbow doesn't really move? It's basically it's at a comfortable spot here, but see how it's all my wrist moving? It's my wrist moving back and forth throughout the shot. It's not my shoulder doing this, it's my wrist going back, forth. So boom, boom. So now I'm going to show you one technique that you can use at home. This is especially useful if you're just starting out and you want to learn the correct technique of the forehand topspin before you actually jump on a table and you have someone blocking to you continuously and your focus is on trying to keep the ball on the table, trying to keep the rally going and trying to work on technique at the same time. I highly recommend, if you haven't got the mechanics right or if you don't feel like you've got the mechanics right, start with this technique first. You can focus purely just on playing the right technique on a forehand topspin. And you don't need a partner. You don't even require having a table. You just need balls. It'll obviously be better if you have a table at home, lots of balls, and if you have a partner, even greater, because if you have a partner, they can actually feed you the ball. But if you don't have a partner, this is one technique, one type of training that you can do to improve your forehand technique by yourself. And again, the more you do it correctly, the more you're going to get used to the good stuff, the good technique. So try this at home. All right, boys and girls. So I've got here with me a bucket. Just grab the balls. Here's the key. A lot of people, they try to do this. They try to chuck the ball up high, and then they play their shot. And that's just a bit awkward because that's a bit unrealistic. And it makes it hard for you to go and hit through the shot, play it like it would if someone's blocking to you. So just here, throw the ball towards your bat, like this. So like this. And just do what we talked about. Get the wrist back, follow through with the wrist and speed up. That's something you can do at home by yourself. And even if you don't have a table, you can do that wherever you want. Smacking forehand topspins with balls. Obviously, again, having the table here, having a place to practice, you can hit it there and then just pick the balls up at the end. So that's a great way for you to first practice getting the technique right. Film yourself. Actually go and film yourself so you can see if you've got the rough mechanics correct. So I'll also chuck in a couple of videos with some professionals forehand topspinning, and you can see exactly what I'm talking about in their shot. One very important thing I want to finish off and say is, with filming, make sure you do film yourself, because for those of you that have played a number of years of table tennis without knowing that you're going like that, your habits become, what you do becomes your habits, and it just becomes normal for you. Whereas if you've actually invested the time and effort to say, I want to change my technique to this sort of this correct forehand topspin, it's going to take you time. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to take you time for you to practice a lot of it, get out of the old habits, get into the new habits. So you have to be patient. You have to be very, very patient. Second, it's so important to film yourself, because only when you film yourself, you'll actually be able to see if you're doing it correctly or not. A lot of the time, you feel like you're doing it correctly, but you might or might not be, because if you do what you're by habit used to, then it's going to feel right. You know, a lot of that, it's also common if you're doing it correctly, that at the start it feels weird because you're not used to it. So those are the reasons why it's so important to film yourself, because often you feel this is new, it feels weird, but then on the actual camera you can see it's often giving you the correct, it'll give you the exact representation of what it looks like, if it's correct or not. Because you could feel perfectly fine, but then you're doing that. Or you could feel totally weird, but you're actually doing it well, like this. Hope that helps. Good luck, guys. All right, guys. So you'll see here Liam Pitchford playing a forehand topspin. So here you see a world-class player. Ball's coming in. You see his focus on his wrist. His wrist is going to go back. His hand and his wrist goes back with the ball, and he follows through completely with the wrist. And here he's able to crack through the incoming block, just as Freitas does here. Ball comes, takes his wrist back, and he's able to crack through the shot and follow through with his wrist.